It's down the long stairs and it's straight along the close. Alan Baker's entry, Adam Buckham goes, and it's oh Adam Buckham, oh Adam Buckham, oh Adam Buckham, oh with his bow legs. Now Nanny carries water and Tommy cobbles shoes, and Adam Buckham comes around gathering bits and news, and it's oh Adam Buckham, oh Adam Buckham, oh Adam Buckham, oh with his bow legs.
The waters of the River Tyne are channeled through this narrow gap in the sea wall here, which protects the shipping in the Lower Tyne from the storms that blow up in the North Sea beyond the wall. The mouth of what we might call the natural Tyne is really here, between North Shields on the north bank here and South Shields, which faces it on the other side. Here we can see the whole course of the Tyne in northeast England. It's formed by two large tributaries, the North Tyne and the South Tyne, and from the point where they join, it's a distance of 50 kilometres to the sea. Much of this is heavily built up. We shall begin our study in this built-up, industrialised stretch of the river and contrast it with the river scenery nearer the source. At North Shields are the fish quays, the focal point of possibly the longest surviving riverside activity. This is a whitefish port. Here are unloaded catches of such fish as cod and halibut, plaice and haddock, turbot and whiting. The fish are caught in the North Sea and off the Faroes and Iceland. From North Shields, some 50 fishing boats travel to the fishing grounds. Trawling is a method of fishing originated from the Tyne and once dominated the fishing industry. Now, in addition to the local-based trawlers, there are 30 to 40 seine net boats also operating from the port. The modern vessels provide a sharp contrast with the smaller, more traditional fishing craft. In recent years, an average of 30,000 tons of whitefish have been landed at these quays. Almost as soon as they've been sorted, some of the fish are prepared for sale as fresh fish in local markets.
Right, George. 2 minutes to get it dropped.
The filleting is done by the buyers. The offal goes for fish meal production. Some of the fish are put into refrigerated lorries and containers to be taken to more distant places, such as Billingsgate Market in London. The fishing boats are among the smallest vessels sailing on the Tyne. In this busy part of the Lower Tyne, the river varies in width from 100 to 300 metres. The width is fixed by the solid wharves. The floor of the river is always changing, and to keep the navigable channel open, continuous dredging is necessary. Here is a Tyne dredger carrying a load of material taken from the river floor to be dumped in the North Sea. To keep the navigable channel open, the river must be dredged to keep a constant depth of 8.5 metres. The river is, of course, tidal, and the tidal variation, the difference between the mean low water springs and the mean high water springs, is approximately 4.5 meters. Shipping on the river is of all shapes and sizes. Whether they are tugs or tankers, they could well have been built here on Tyneside. Located along both banks are several major shipbuilding and ship repair yards. They employ more than 15,000 people. Such work is a traditional occupation here. The yards are sited here for several reasons, including the suitability of the river channel, the availability of the necessary raw materials, wood originally and now steel and other metals, the availability of a labour supply, the investment of capital derived from shipping and other profits, and because of the demands from northeastern shipping companies for vessels of all kinds. The largest ships made in these yards are oil tankers. Massive ships like this one pose difficulties when they're launched because there's only just enough room to turn them to go downstream. In addition to fishing and shipbuilding, Tyneside is famed as a major cargo handling port. With numerous ships carrying such cargoes as oil, chemicals, textiles and foodstuffs, a river police force is a necessity too. We're now approaching the bridges at Newcastle, some 17 kilometres from the river mouth. Here, there is a cluster of bridges. The Tyne Road Bridge was opened in 1928 and was copied for the Sydney Harbour Bridge in Australia. The next bridge, the Swing Bridge, marks the original bridging point of the Tyne. Both trains and road vehicles cross the high-level bridge, designed in the mid-19th century by Robert Stephenson and built by the North Eastern Railway Company. It's one of the earliest bridges made of cast iron. These bridges, carrying major north to south road and rail routes, link Newcastle to Gateshead on the south bank. Newcastle is best known as a coal port, and here, further upstream, are some of the staiths, a local word for wharves, where, having been carried here by rail, the coal is loaded onto ships. Coal is still the major export from the Tyne, averaging more than 2 million tonnes per year in the early 1970s. From here to Blaydon, engineering firms and power stations dominate the riverside scene. All of the commercial and industrial activity produces a problem common to all industrialized rivers, the problem of water pollution. The Tyne waters are polluted from 4 main sources: cooling water from power stations, domestic sewage, trade waste from industrial firms, and sewage and oil from ships in the river. The first plans to clean up the river were drafted some 60 years ago, and in 1972, construction work started on a massive scheme to rid the estuary of pollution. It's expected that by the 1980s, the waters of the lower Tyne will be clean enough to swim in. Already, salmon have got upstream. Our overall impression of the lower Tyne is of a navigable channel dominated on both banks by industrial and port buildings. The channel is used by a variety of shipping which sails through river water seriously affected by pollution. Between Blaydon, approximately the western end of the industrialised stretch of the Tyne, and Hexham, the character of the river changes dramatically. The river is now flowing through open countryside. Fields and trees have replaced wharves and factories. This is an area of scattered farms, engaged in mixed farming, supplying mainly foodstuffs for Newcastle and the industrial towns. Serving the farming communities are small towns like Hexham, seen here from the south. This town, with a population of nearly 10,000, is an important bridging point and the largest settlement upstream from Newcastle. 2.5 kilometres upstream from Hexham is an important development point in the river course. I'm standing at the confluence of the two major tributaries of the Tyne, the South Tyne over there, which starts way up in the northern Pennines, and the North Tyne immediately behind me, which starts in the western Cheviots. And these two main tributaries bring with them a variety of material. The South Tyne brings with it stuff from the limestone and sandstones of the northern Pennines, and the North Tyne brings a variety of materials from the western Cheviots. And the stuff that it brings down is carried along in two ways, either in solution, as salt is held in the sea, or in traction, which means that the smaller particles, sand and silt, are carried along by the speed of the water, and the larger particles, the gravels, the pebbles, are rolled along the river bed, being deposited in gravel banks like this at the confluence itself. The land between the two tributaries is technically called an interfluve. We shall look at the most striking relief feature in this interfluve before returning to the river and concentrating our attention on the North Tyne. The interfluve is dominated by open, rolling countryside. It is fringed on the north side by this massive rocky outcrop called the Great Twin Sill. It is a mass of igneous rock which was injected into the layers of sedimentary rocks. As erosion of the softer sedimentary rocks occurred, the sill was exposed to produce this craggy escarpment. When the Romans decided to build a wall from coast to coast across northern England, they made good use of the summits of the Twin Sill. Hadrian's Wall marked the northwest frontier of the Roman Empire. The line of the wall is best seen at Housesteads. And here there are also the impressive remains of a Roman fort. The fort is just off the Carlisle to Newcastle road, and it attracts many thousands of visitors every year. It lies within the Northumberland National Park. There are problems of conservation here. They are caused not only by the numbers of the walkers on the wall itself, but also by the visitors who cross the surrounding farmland. 12 kilometres east of Housesteads is the North Tyne. The line of Hadrian's Wall crosses the North Tyne a short distance from the modern Cholerford Bridge. Names like Manchester, Silchester, Rochester and so on are generally taken to mean that the Chester part of the name implies there was a Roman fort of some kind there. This place where I'm standing now is called Chester's, and it is a tremendous Roman fort. The part I'm standing in now is the bathhouse, and as you'd expect, it's pretty near to the river. That's the North Tyne. But we're here because of a fine example of what Roman engineers were very good at, and that is building bridges. They chose this spot because the North Tyne is narrower here than it is upstream or downstream. It's about 50 metres wide. And they also chose it because the native rock, the rock of the district, is pretty near the surface, and that provided them with very good, safe, secure foundations. But they built a very fine example of a bridge here. The west abutment, where I'm standing, is now underwater because the River Tyne has changed its course slightly, leaving the east abutment across the river some 15 or 16 metres away from the water's edge. While the Roman remains are possibly the most well-known tourist attractions in this part of north-east England, many visitors are attracted to the rural river scenery further up the North Tyne Valley. The route of this stretch of the North Tyne between Bellingham and Chorlton raises an interesting geographical problem. Why does the North Tyne flow from north to south, eventually to link up with the South Tyne to flow at right angles to the sea? Some geographers believe that the entire length of the Tyne once looked like this and flowed due east to the sea, as did those other two rivers to the north. One explanation is that during the Ice Age, a massive ice sheet dammed those rivers to the north. They were forced to cut new channels to the south, hence their present course. The other explanation is that a tributary of the Tyne eroded headwards and cut back upstream, effectively capturing the east-west flowing streams which it met. There's still disagreement as to the actual processes which took place. From Bellingham to the source, the North Tyne becomes narrower and it flows in a valley surrounded by forests. By the 1980s, part of this valley in the heart of the Kielder forest will be flooded. The Kielder water scheme is a massive undertaking. The river will be dammed to form a reservoir 11 kilometres in length, supplying water for the industrial towns of the northeast. This undertaking will be bound to influence the whole course of the Tyne. We have seen that for much of its length, the Tyne flows in a valley of rural scenery. It's unspoilt by built-up areas. Then, from a winding, natural river, it changes to an urban canal surrounded by factories and wharves. It is this contrast between a spoiled and an unspoiled river which makes the Tyne particularly interesting.
Thank you.